This information is from Wisconsin's Green Fire, Voices for Conservation, a new organization formed to support the conservation legacy of Wisconsin by promoting science-based management of its natural resources. One of our priorities is sharing knowledge about the relationship between agriculture and water quality. This is one of several presentations and documents on this subject available through our website. My name is Bruce Neeb. I joined Wisconsin DNR as a public affairs manager in 1990 and today volunteer with Wisconsin's Green Fire's Communication Committee. The information in this presentation was drawn from the expertise of water quality and public health scientists from Wisconsin DNR and the university system, as well as agricultural conservation experience from the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture and county conservation departments, who are listed here. Our team members are volunteers choosing to provide decision makers with current science on the relationship between cropping practices and water quality. Our intent is to share this material with anyone wishing to influence policies related to agriculture and water quality. It's geared toward audiences anywhere in the state, with a wide range of backgrounds from concerned citizens and elected officials to agricultural and water quality professionals. Our talk will therefore start basic and advance to more important technical detail. A wide variety of factors influence the relationship between agriculture and water quality. Wisconsin's Green Fire believes that the majority of farmers want to do the right thing by the environment and will do the best they can within their capabilities. To encourage sustainable farming, society needs to foster an economic system that allows responsible farmers to make a living. Achieving environmental goals on most farms can be costly, and farms cannot shift their environmental costs to their markets. There are significant costs associated with agriculture that farmers and consumers of agricultural products are transferring to others in the form of poor water quality and surface water. Society needs to decide the extent to which it will provide financial assistance to address those deferred costs. Society needs to decide the extent to which it will assist farmers who want to adopt conservation practices but can't afford them, and reward farmers already meeting performance standards, especially those achieving water quality standards. This needs to include accountability to treat farmers fairly. The primary purpose of Wisconsin Green Fire presentations is to make available science that informs farmers and policymakers when statewide minimum practices will still allow local environmental impacts. Society needs to decide the extent to which it will enforce compliance on farms that willfully refuse to adopt or maintain performance standards, despite having available resources to do so. Nitrate is very water soluble, so it moves with the water cycle from groundwater recharge areas into aquifers and then to surface waters. Once nitrate enters the groundwater system, it is very stable. It does not degrade and therefore remains a contaminant threat for decades. Naturally occurring nitrogen levels in groundwater are generally below 1 part per million. Levels above that indicate a human contribution. The safe drinking water level is 10 parts per million based on long-term consumption by anyone and even short-term consumption by infants and pregnant women. High levels of nitrates in drinking water can cause methemoglobinemia, or blue baby syndrome, in infants. It also increases the risk for certain types of birth defects and may cause thyroid problems and increase the risk for certain types of cancer. Wisconsin's Green Fire is preparing a separate presentation on the health effects of nitrate. Nitrate contamination is a widespread and severe threat to Wisconsin's groundwater and surface waters. In the blue areas on this map, up to 5% of the wells test above the nitrate drinking water standard. In the dark orange areas, more than 25% test above the standard. 1/3 of Wisconsin residents rely on private wells, including 42,000 wells exceeding the drinking water standard for nitrate. As of 2012, the raw untreated water in 47 municipal wells in Wisconsin exceeded the standard, more than 3 times the number just 13 years earlier. In 2018, the Groundwater Coordinating Council reported Wisconsin spent $32.5 million attempting to treat nitrate-contaminated groundwater. Nitrates in lakes and streams stimulate the growth of plants and algae that can deplete oxygen, killing fish and other aquatic life. These are state-threatened fish species susceptible to nitrate in the groundwater feeding Wisconsin River oxbow lakes. Unlike groundwater, Wisconsin does not have a surface water criterion for nitrogen. Scientific studies show levels below 2 milligrams per liter are needed to protect sensitive freshwater species, which is well below the state's 10 milligram per liter drinking water standard. Many factors contribute to susceptibility of groundwater contamination by nitrates. Areas with sandy soils are particularly susceptible. You can see its distribution on this map. Modern geographic information technology allows us to identify areas that are most susceptible. The nature of bedrock plays a role in the amount of surface nitrogen that moves into groundwater. Fractured bedrock can hurry the transport of nitrates from surface-applied fertilizers and nutrients into the groundwater. Areas particularly susceptible are identified here. Other factors include shallow bedrock. On this map, areas shown in lighter colors have bedrock closer to the surface. Land use, particularly agriculture, plays a significant role. As agricultural density increases, so does groundwater nitrate. Studies have found that nitrogen lost from continuous corn cropping is 16 to 37 times higher than from perennial grass systems. This map shows the distribution of agriculture in Wisconsin. The important agricultural factors include the types of crops grown and the presence of irrigation. Together, these factors contribute to the distribution of nitrate in Wisconsin's groundwater. The importance of agriculture as a nitrogen source on a statewide basis has been documented. Agricultural nitrate comes from the application of both inorganic commercial fertilizers and manure. Nitrogen is applied to crops in several forms. Depending upon a variety of factors, some of it moves into the groundwater, usually in the form of nitrate nitrogen. A summary of the fate of nitrogen applied to Midwestern corn crops found that an average 37% was recovered by the harvested crop, with the rest either left behind in organic material, volatilized into the air, or leached into the groundwater. Septic systems are not designed to remove nitrogen and are also a source, with release of nitrates to groundwater happening uniformly throughout the year. Studies at the UW-Stevens Point have estimated a subdivision with lots just over a half an acre in size will release about the same amount of nitrogen into the groundwater as a cornfield in well-drained, silt-loam soil. Nitrate can move through the groundwater in zones. In this example, nitrate in the farm field is affecting only the deeper well. The shallow well is not affected by the farm field, but could be impacted by the septic system of the upgradient house. From 1960 to about the year 2000, nitrogen use as a fertilizer in the U.S. increased drastically and has since plateaued somewhat. The nitrogen levels in Wisconsin streams are showing the same trend, with orange dots on this map showing where nitrate levels have increased. Agricultural nitrogen application rates for all farms are required to be managed using nutrient management plans. But as of 2017, plans were in place for only about 37% of the state's farm acreage. Currently, the plan requirement is enforced only on larger farms and those on which the farmer is compensated for maintaining management practices. Nitrogen management planning determines the point at which adding more nitrogen is no longer beneficial for a given crop and agricultural purpose. Applications beyond this point have been shown to dramatically increase the losses of nitrogen to groundwater. Different crops have different nitrogen needs and therefore different potential for loss to groundwater, with studies showing soybeans, corn, and potatoes on the high end. If farming practices follow a nutrient management plan, chemical fertilization and manure are about equal in terms of impacts on groundwater, all else being equal. Long-term groundwater impact studies associated with cropping practices are rare. This 7-year nitrogen leaching study examined common agricultural practices. It studied nitrate leaching below well-drained continuous corn agroecosystems. It utilized standard nitrogen application rates. It evaluated chisel plow, no-till, and prairie as control. Both tillage methods showing similar leaching to groundwater. 75% of the leaching occurred in April through June. The flow-weighted mean nitrate nitrogen in leachate was 9.5 to 12.2 milligrams per liter. When corn is grown in very sandy soil with irrigation, more nitrogen is lost to groundwater than in the previous example. Nutrient management plans call for application of up to 50% more nitrogen in this situation to maintain crop yields. There are ways to reduce nitrogen loss to groundwater. This is an area of active research. Extended rotation means there are multiple years with crops with little or no nitrogen added to the farm fields. Making changes that result in large reductions are the most difficult because they involve changing crops. We applied the alternative practice estimates from the Iowa study to the example we used before, 7 years of corn grown on well-drained soil. This example starts with a baseline condition of 31 pounds per acre of nitrogen lost to groundwater, resulting in a nitrate concentration under the field of 11 milligrams per liter. The results give us a feel for potential improvement using different practices. For example, using cover and companion crops gives a 28 to 31% decline, 22 pounds per acre nitrogen loss to groundwater, resulting in 7.7 milligrams per liter nitrate in groundwater under the field. It's worth noting multiple practices can be applied to one individual field. Monitoring wells at Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations, or CAFOS in Wisconsin, have revealed nitrate concentrations several times higher than the state drinking water standard. What we don't know is how well the CAFOs were following their nutrient management plans. The performance standards in NR 151, which applies to all farms, and those of NR 243, which applies to CAFOs, require that the discharge of nutrients be limited to maintain compliance with surface and groundwater standards. However, while groundwater law conceptually expects agriculture to meet groundwater standards, NRCS 590, which is the basis for this process, contains this disclaimer. Policies often view university recommendations as a vehicle for achieving environmental objectives, while the basis for developing recommendations is agronomic. So there are conflicting goals built into the system. Wisconsin's Green Fire sees the following challenges. Current Wisconsin standards and cropping guidelines are supposed to protect water quality. Practices related to timing and placement of nutrient applications, as well as source of nutrients, provide some protection to surface and groundwater. Ag producers see their ability to add nitrogen as related to their profits, and unlike phosphorus, no tool has been established to estimate nitrogen loss to groundwater. Wisconsin's Green Fire has reached the following conclusions. Fertilizer application has resulted in 20 to 30% of private wells in intensive crop areas exceeding the public health standard. Current nutrient management plans are likely insufficient for groundwater protection when growing crops needing high nitrogen in settings where loss to groundwater is rapid. The current agricultural, economic, and regulatory system defers environmental costs from agricultural producers and consumers to owners of water supplies. The current system has no basis for determining the compliance of farms with groundwater standards. Wisconsin's Green Fire recommends that at all levels we encourage more widespread and accurate use of nutrient management plans. We acknowledge that even accurate use of nutrient management plans is not enough to protect groundwater in sensitive areas, and that we encourage more widespread private well sampling. At the state level, Green Fire recommends that we modify nutrient management plans to include estimates of the nitrogen lost to groundwater, that we monitor the effect of alternative practices on groundwater nitrate at representative areas. Green Fire recommends epidemiological studies on the consumption of nitrate-contaminated groundwater, and that we develop a surface water criterion for nitrogen. Thank you for taking time to view this presentation. You can send questions and comments to this email address. The literature used in this presentation is listed on the following slides.